I am Lois Wendt, co-president of the League of Women Voters of Crystal, New Hope, and East Plymouth. On behalf of our league, we welcome you to the forum for the City of Crystal candidates for mayor and council seats. Many members of our league helped plan this event and are also helping at the event. The League of Women Voters is widely known for its voter registration and education efforts. The League never endorses any candidate or political party. We believe that every eligible American citizen should be able to cast a ballot. Your membership in our league is welcomed, women and men. We have information about the league and voter registration materials at the table where you entered. Please seize one of our members if you have any questions. Thank you.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here, and I might say once again, because this won't be the first time that I have moderated a candidate forum for the City of Crystal, and I see two veteran candidates up here already who are running for mayor. As well as those candidates, we have council members for Section 1 and council members for Ward 3 and Ward 4 here this evening. The forum for mayor will take place until 7:30 p.m. Moving along quickly after that, the Section 1 candidates, their forum will take place until 8, and so on and so forth until we finally reach the end at about 9 o'clock. So I hope you have a lot of patience tonight. I know many of you are familiar with League's format, but let me just review it quickly. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for an opening statement to tell us about themselves and why, first of all, they're running for mayor or to represent you on the city council. Following that, members of the audience may ask questions of individual or all candidates. And again, please write your questions on the cards that are available to you and hand them to a league member. Questions submitted online up to the day before the forum will also be included. All candidates may answer any question whether or not it was directed to them, and candidates tonight are going to take up to 1.5 minutes to answer a question. At the end of the question period, each candidate will have up to 1 minute for a concluding statement. Since we have 4 forums tonight, really don't want to repeat this each time, so we'll try to remember all of those things. So the candidates for mayor are, in alphabetical order, Jim Adams and Renee Bowman. We have a timekeeper in the audience who will assist you by indicating how much time remains and when to stop. So hoping that you can see the timekeeper clearly, please begin with your opening statement of up to 2 minutes, and the first one to speak will be Renee Bowman.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this very important forum, and to the Crystal residents for taking the time to listen. I am Renee Bowman, running for Crystal's mayor with a proven plan to move Crystal forward towards a brighter future. The current council, under the leadership of Jim Adams, hit residents with the largest tax increase in years by approving an 8% increase for 2017. The new debt service tax plan forces residents to needlessly pay a new tax to retire street reconstruction bonds early. Residents receiving their roads this year and next will pay the most for the longest periods of time under this plan. An unfair plan that does not show any value or any savings. This is unacceptable and unsustainable. This new tax will cause citizen flight, foreclosures, and home devaluations. I have a proven track record as Crystal's mayor. I kept taxes low and services high from 2005 through 2012 without any operational debt. My conservative money management skills produced balanced budgets with surpluses that we saved into reserve accounts. Reserves strengthened Crystal's finances by keeping property taxes and utility increases low. How? Interest paid on revenue accounts is non-tax generated income. Crystal needs a strong financial leader to build a brighter future. Vote for Renee Bowman for that brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bowman. The second candidate to speak will be Jim Adams.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum and thank everyone for being here and everyone who's watching on TV or online. My name is Jim Adams. I am the mayor of Crystal. In the past 4 years, we've made much progress towards our goals of financial responsibility, improving transparency and communication, and providing government from a citizen's perspective. I'm asking for re-election on November 8th so we can continue to build our success and continue to move forward. Since I was elected, we have cut wasteful spending and have begun to produce honest city budgets. No more tricks, no more gimmicks for political cover. No more hidden taxes where we pretend we didn't raise taxes, but yet sticking people with a large special assessment bill. We have reduced our reliance on debt. We continue to do so. Not bonding for the public works facility, we saved Crystal $6 million in finance charges. That would be $1 million increase on the tax levy if that would have happened. We've become more transparent by recording our work sessions so everyone can hear what we're talking about. We've done a better job communicating by holding more public meetings for public input and engaging in social media. We have begun using plain language in our communication. We have made great progress, but there's more to do. Therefore, I'm asking for your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now it's time for audience questions. You can continue to write and raise your hand for a league member to collect your question during the course of the forum. It's our intention to select questions that represent the interests expressed by the members of our audience. We do reserve the right to consolidate questions if there are several on one issue, so that as many issues as possible may be covered during this period. And questions will be answered in rotating order. And the first one to answer will be Jim Adams. And this one is a very brief question. It says, do you support the Bottineau light rail line?
Bottineau is a regional effort that is coming from Met Council. It's a regional effort that we have in our city. So when it comes to the place we're at with Bottineau Boulevard, LRT, we are to the point right now where we are 30% in engineering. I'm on that corridor management committee, which is the group that makes decisions on what's happening. My role as mayor is to protect the interests of Crystal citizens and to make sure that they're being protected from whatever impact, the environmental impact that may happen with our citizens. I continue to support and fight for the citizens of Crystal because we're the only voice. If we don't have a say and if we don't fight for the impacts in Crystal, nobody will. So therefore, when it comes to light rail, we are fighting for safe crossing at 81, where the station will be, and we're also fighting for screening for people who live along the rail so that they don't have sight lines from the trains into the houses. Those are the things we're fighting for right now. That's where we are in the project, and I will continue to be that representative.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Bowman.
I definitely support light rail, just like I supported and was around when we did the road reconstruction for County Road 81, when we took it from 4 lanes to 6 lanes. As I've been out campaigning, there's a tremendous amount of excitement for light rail. People who shared with me, you know, my wife is going to be able to take the light rail downtown where she works. And people excited about being able to get to sporting events, to get to North Hennepin Community College. The majority of people I've talked to, in fact, everyone I've talked to at this point, definitely supports light rail here in the city of Crystal. Now, it is very important that we represent the needs and the interests of the city of Crystal, but that requires attending all the meetings, of which my counterpart, Mr. Adams, has attended 6 of the 12 meetings that were planning meetings for this particular line. I think that if you're going to be participating as an elected official within the community, then the best interests of the people are represented when you show up in the meetings. You participate with other officials from other government entities, and you work to get along so the best deal can not only be cut for the city of Crystal, but for the region in which Crystal is a member. Thank you.
All right, let me go on with a question which has to do with this light rail. And the first one to answer will be Ms. Bowman. How do you envision the development around the light rail station, and what do you see as the city's role in guiding that development?
That development, I believe, is going to really be dependent upon monies that come in and are available. The other part about that light rail area is that it is privately owned up in that area. So it's going to have to be in conjunction with the folks who own the private land up there. The other thing that I'm concerned about is that without a particular task force that would look at the options that would be available to that area up there, I think we've limited our thinking on this. I think that when we look at our little station up there, we might have go-to cars or Uber cabs or the green bikes, many other ways in which to bring people to that light rail line. I have a strong history with working well with other people. My intent would be to work with the Metropolitan Transit Commission to also see what sort of shuttle services we could create within the city of Crystal to get folks to the station. Those are the important keys to me. Thank you.
Mr. Adams.
Well, one of the biggest differences in our station in Crystal is that it is on a park. And that's one of the things that is going to be very special about the LRT is that there is a park there. We are going through an awful lot of efforts to get the citizens' input on what that park is going to look like. We are working with partners throughout the political community to help us fund some of the things. We have a great opportunity to have the Crown Jewel Park in Crystal at that location. And as we go through and start developing, or when private businesses start developing around that area, we have a great opportunity to make that just one of the best stops that there is. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the citizens as far as what their perspective is, what they want to see there, because that's who I'm representing, and that, I believe, is who's going to be driving the train.
Driving the train, was that...
That was a pun. It was supposed to be punny.
That was... Well, I think we all chuckled. And here is the next question, and Mr. Adams, you will be the first one to answer this. Do you feel that bonding for infrastructure projects is a prudent, fiscally responsible way for Crystal to finance and fund projects?
There are a couple answers to that. The first one is if we were a very large city and we had a great, huge tax base, we can work through it. For the city that we have, bonding always costs money. And what I want to do and what I've always been proposing is that we try not to bond, we try not to use debt. We've reduced our debt, and we continue to do so. And when it comes to bonding, whether it's inside of an assessment or inside of an infrastructure, it's always raising the cost of that project. We're not using every dollar to do the project, the planning, the design, the bricks, the mortar. All of that is not what that money goes for. Oftentimes there's bonding at what is a face value of 1%, 2%, 3%, which is apparently very cheap. Well, let's take a look at one instance. We had a public works facility. We were looking at bonding for the whole amount at 13.5 million. And I looked at the time. Minutes, it's seconds now. And for that small percentage, there was $6 million in finance charges. And that's about almost 30% of the cost of the project. That is not an efficient way to use the taxpayers' money in Crystal.
Thank you, and Ms. Bowman.
Could you please repeat the question?
I certainly will.
Thank you.
Do you feel that bonding for infrastructure projects is a prudent, fiscally responsible way for Crystal to finance and fund projects?
I think that bonding for infrastructure needs to be calculated along with the life of the asset. I think that if you have a 50-year building, bonding for infrastructure can make sense because it does keep taxes low. And it also spreads those payments to the point where people in the future have some skin in the game instead of making me pay for everything today. The other thing, when my opponent talks about spending down the debt on the current bonding, just so everyone is aware, Crystal has two debts. We have one for the pool that was voted in by citizens in 1994. The other bonding that we're currently using is for street reconstruction projects. Many of you may have even seen the article in today's paper about the questions concerning street reconstruction where you're bonding, and no one's ever really getting a road. So it sort of comes down to what type of principles you're using when creating bonding. Bonding is good for long-term projects. Bonding can keep taxes low over the long haul. We always need infrastructure. Sometimes we need to have bonds for them. So I will not get painted into a corner by saying I would never bond, but I never bonded needlessly as your mayor. Thank you.
All right, and here's the next question. This card is pretty well filled, so listen carefully. Ms. Bowman, you will be the first one to reply. The 2017 tax levy is the largest in the last 10 years and possibly ever. This levy does not show any appropriations for a building fund. This has been promised for 3 years. The 4th year is not budgeted. Will you, after 4 years, be prepared to formulate a plan in the open for 2018? Is that clear?
That does not make, can you read that again?
I will. You know, I am not a resident of Crystal, so I am simply reading the questions here from your constituents. The 2017 tax levy is the largest in the last 10 years and possibly ever. This levy does not show any appropriations for a building fund. This has been promised for 3 years and the 4th year is not budgeted. So then it asks, will you, after 4 years, be prepared to formulate a plan for 2018?
Well.
Do your best.
Do my best, I always do. My plan for here's one of the things that added 7% to the taxes that were increased in 2017. And you were charged 7% increase to pay down street reconstruction bonds. So you could actually remove 7% off the get-go and go back to the normally scheduled payments for those street reconstruction bonds and lower taxes by 7%. So, you know, when I come back in, of course, take a look at everything, but look at those things that are double tax. I believe that 7% that went on the debt service fund for 2017 was a needless double tax on the residents of Crystal. For those of us who continue to pay for our street reconstruction project, not only will we be paying for that street reconstruction project, we will be paying for everyone else's street reconstruction project while we pay for our own. And that to me is the unfair part of the huge tax increase that we saw for 2017. And yes, I would build a new budget for buildings.
Mr. Adams.
Let's be clear on what tax levy is. Tax levy is only part of what the taxes are. There are a lot of things that we do in the city that cause money to go from the citizens to the city. It's assessments, it's the levy itself, and there are fees. So taking a small picture of the levy itself is not the full story. What we've done in the full picture is we've taken the assessments and we've moved those from the assessment roll to the levy. So it's not a tax increase, it's moving it. When you have an assessment, The assessment includes some management, some administrative fees for collecting the fees, as well as debt, interest going to banks. Those are the two costs that we're eliminating by taking it from the assessment roll and putting it onto the levy. So yes, the levy is going up, and yes, it's probably more than what we've seen in a very long time. However, that doesn't equate to a tax increase. When you bring the assessments and the levy together, you're not looking at that. Other increases that we've seen in levies throughout the years is based on wages and benefits. I don't know about you, but my health insurance has gone up. We're seeing that on the levy, and that's where it should be. That's where we should be seeing it. So that's a part of it. I might be able to continue later.
Well, you know, that was a complex question, and those answers were very complex, too. I think if you have further questions about that, you might talk to either one of these two people after the forum is over, too, because now we'll move on here. And we will begin with Mr. Adams. Will you follow through until completion the work the Code Review Task Force has started?
Yes, the Code Review Task Force. This was something that was really cool. I couldn't believe, when we look at some of the things that happen in government, we try to get volunteers and citizens to come forward and to do something, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth. But not on this one. People were really excited to take a look and dive into code, believe it or not. And we had a set number of people that wanted to do that, and we got more than we expected who wanted to take a look at our code review task force, or our codes. We used to have more codes than we had citizens. And some of them were very outdated. Some of the stranger ones is, drying your laundry on a line. Well, that's illegal in Crystal, according to our codes. Soon you'll be able to do that, I think. We have a pool table at the Crystal Community Center. We're going to make that legal, too. So those are some of the unusual ones. But there are a lot of things we want to govern from where codes are up to date. They're not old. They're applicable to how we want to govern today. And it's a process that we're seeing our neighbors in New Hope starting to do the same thing that we're doing, because their codes are old and stale as well. So yeah, we really want to take a look at everything and make sure that we're governing from the best possible place. And the cool thing about it is that it's coming from the citizens. It's the citizens' perspective. And that just, it makes me smile.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Bowman?
Read the question to me again, please.
Yes. Will you follow through until completion the work the Code Review Task Force has started?
My answer is yes. Why would you waste the money that's already been spent? When I was mayor, we handled codes as they came along and created problems. There's been a lot of people involved in this particular group. I have no plans on pulling the plug on that one. However, I'm also concerned about the lack of support and attention to some of the other commissions here within the city of Crystal, which are as important as a code task force. So along with finishing the work on the code task force, it would be to continue to build and rebuild our lost commissions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you wouldn't believe how quickly time passes up here. But now we're at the point where we're going to have closing statements from our two candidates here. Wish we had a little longer. Each of you has 1 minute to give a closing statement, and we'll begin in reverse order from the opening statements, and that means we begin with Mr. Adams.
Boy, I really wish we had more time, too. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. My name is Jim Adams, and I'm asking for another year as your mayor. Crystal has made great progress in the past 4 years, and together we can keep Crystal moving forward. My focus on providing government from a citizen's perspective means I'm always looking out for you. I need to hear from you what we're doing well or what needs attention. Call me at 612-805-5101 with any comments, or text or email me at jim@reelection jim@reelectjimadams.com. My name is Jim Adams. I'm asking for your vote again, and thank you very much for your attention.
And thank you very much. Ms. Bowman.
Again, thanks to the League residents and candidates for their dedication to the City of Crystal. Tonight I talked about a brighter future, so what does my brighter future look like here in Crystal? The Blue Line light rail is built, stabilize city budgets to prevent unnecessary tax increases, build train quiet zones and fix the traffic intersection at 36th and Regent, restore our Human Rights Commission, invest in dog park and other park improvements, implement voluntary organic pickup, build a recycling program for businesses, churches, and schools to improve recycling here in Crystal, prepare Crystal to meet future challenges to solid waste laws, rules, and standards, and most importantly, work to create an inclusive community willing to acknowledge and honor differences as we work towards creating a common bond of unity. If that sounds like the future you would like to see for our city, then please vote for me, Renee Bowman, for Crystal's next mayor on November 8th. Check out www.mayorbowman.org.
Well, I'd like to thank the two candidates, and I think you would like to do that too. For Section 1, which area, according to my handy little crystal map, is south of 44th and 45th Avenue North, right?
Correct.
South to the southern border of Crystal. Okay, everybody got that in mind, so you know which area these candidates are from. And we have two candidates here. We have Therese Kaiser and Nancy LaRoche. Now, not to repeat too much, but you do know that the timekeeper is sitting right in front of you and will signal you when, how much time remains and when to stop. And audience, please continue to write your questions. You may have some very specific ones for this area of your city. So we're going to begin with their opening statements of up to 2 minutes, and the first one to speak will be Nancy LaRoche.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for all the work that you do for hosting tonight's event. To those in the audience tonight and watching us online, and all voters throughout Crystal. My name is Nancy LaRoche. I've lived here for over 19 years with my husband, Walt, and our most recently adopted rescue dog, Spencer. We live in the Valley Place neighborhood, and I work in the marketing and communications field. I've been an active volunteer in Crystal for a long time. Most recently, I was elected last year, appointed for the Charter Commission by Hennepin County District Court. For the last 5 years, I've served on the Park and Recreation Advisory Commission, and this year I was appointed chair. For the last 4 years, I've served on the Crystal Frolics Commission, worked with Lynn Haney and developing the Kids Scavenger Hunt and a Family-Friendly Day. And my first foray into city work was being an election judge for 10 years. I've worked every election up until this year. And I'm running with 4 primary goals: prosperity, inclusion, safety, and communication. I want to keep Crystal an affordable place to live, a great place to raise a family, do business, and hopefully keep on living here and retiring. I announced my run in late February. I'd be honored to have your support, and I am proud to say I'm endorsed by neighbors, not any political party. It would be an honor to serve you, and I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Therese Kaiser.
Hello, I'm Therese Kaiser, and I'm running for City Council Section 1 here in Crystal. I want to start off by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and I want to thank all of you for coming this evening, for those of you at home watching online, and for all of you participating in this process. I've lived in Crystal for 23 years. My husband and I have raised our children here. We believe it's a great community and a great place to live. As I thought about running, I looked a little deeper into the city's government. What stood out for me was a lack of vision or strategic plan for Crystal. What is being done now to ensure Crystal continues to be a great community 10, 20, 30 years from now? We need a plan in motion that reflects Crystal moving forward, including careful monitoring of resources and finances, careful spending, while maintaining enough in reserves to cover emergencies. Crystal is in a great spot. Exciting things are happening. With the blue line extending through the north part of Crystal, we have a wonderful opportunity for development, repurposing existing facilities, and putting some vibrancy in Becker Park. Communities are changing, our residents are aging, younger folks are interested in living a more urban lifestyle. This is a great time to look at Crystal differently. Crystal is in a great position to put forth a strategic plan, coming with new and different ways and partnerships as we move forward. Crystal is a great place to live. We have wonderful parks and green spaces, unique businesses, and lovely people. Let's work together in moving Crystal forward. I'm Therese Kaiser, and I ask for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you very much, both of you, for your opening statements. And now it's time for the audience questions. Again, you can continue to write and hand your questions to a league member. Just to remind you, even if a question is addressed to one candidate, both can answer, and we reserve the right to consolidate questions if there are several on the same subject. Questions will be answered in rotating order, so we'll start first with Therese Kaiser. And here's the first question for you. How would you describe your fiscal policies?
Wow, that's a pretty broad question. Me personally, or as a city council member?
I would suppose as a council person.
That's what I would suppose too. I think we need to look at our city's budget. As was pointed out in the mayor's forum right before ours, there's an 8% increase that just got approved in very recent days. That's a pretty large increase, and I think if we look at the city, there's not much of a plan as far as keeping our city solvent, and an emergency contingency fund for very much for emergency contingencies. The building fund has been depleted. I think we need to look at the city's budget and revamp with priorities in place in keeping taxes stable, keeping the government or the finances stable, and a plan allowing for building fund and other funds to be built up over time. Thank you.
A very open-ended.
That's just fine. And now, Ms. LaRoche.
Thank you. Having attended several meetings and work sessions over the last year, I've seen how hard the city council has worked, some of the difficult decisions they need to make, and I very much appreciate everyone's concern about a higher tax rate. For instance, my husband was laid off 3 years ago. We buy our own insurance now, our own health insurance, which is going up over 50% this year. And so on top of that, some of us may be facing tremendous increases there. I want to approach this similar to a home budget. When you think about financing a car, you want to think about how much am I paying in interest, or if I have the cash to pay it and that particular fund is set up specifically for a building replacement, such as it was for the Public Works building, then it makes sense to me to use that money. Why spend another $1 million, or in this case, the building was $13.5 million. Why spend another $6.5 million in interest, which would be taxed to you, the resident? I'm very concerned about that too, but in some cases it may make sense to bond. I'm all for all options. I'm all for working with the city and making a fiscally responsible decision. Thank you.
All right, here's the next question, and I have a feeling this question is going to be asked more than once or twice tonight. Do you support the Bottineau light rail line? And the first person to answer will be Nancy LaRoche.
Well, I think it doesn't matter if I support it or not. This issue has been decided. My concern is for safety, number one. The fact, I attended a couple of the community meetings sponsored by the Blue Line Committee, and we were very excited. The community was all invited to come and sit at tables, look at the maps, and offer their input, suggestions, concerns, and overwhelmingly, a pedestrian bridge was desired for safe crossing over Highway 81. We all thought it would be in the budget. We all thought it would be in the planning. And then when the city council voted to move ahead, they were only presented with 15% of that plan. And at that time, they were not sure of that bridge. They were not sure of the screening and some other concerns. So whether or not I support it is irrelevant, but what I can do is work with those agencies. I'm happy to, and make this a successful project and most of all, safe. Thank you.
And Ms. Kaiser.
I think the Botno line or the Blue Line extension is a great opportunity for our community here in Crystal. Mass transit is the wave of the future. That's where it just makes sense on many, many different levels. I think it's a great opportunity for Crystal to redevelop that part of Crystal, Becker Park, and all the businesses in that whole section of Crystal there. There are some tired businesses that need help, and Becker Park is needing a little input of revamping, and it's underutilized the way it is. So I'm excited about the light rail coming to Crystal. I'm excited that we're going to be part of this new and exciting adventure, and I'm excited as a Crystal resident to see what else besides the train itself it brings our way. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Here is the next question, and Ms. Kaiser, you will be the first one to answer this. Do you support a dedicated funding source for emergency situations such as the water main break?
Yes, I do. That was very unfortunate, the water main break that happened in Robbinsdale twice, I believe. And Crystal's portion, at least the first time, was, I don't know, about $1.5 million of what we needed to pony up. Bad choice of words. We needed to invest as far as our contribution to the water main breaking. My understanding is that the fund was depleted and we can't plan for water main breaking, and that's why it's necessary to have funds in reserve. I think it's a disservice to our city to spend down resources and not have emergency money available in the event of a water main break or another catastrophe. You can't bond for water main breaking the way you can bond for buildings that are going to increase in value over time. That's a whole huge subject, bonding, but I think it was a disservice to the city of Crystal not to have money set aside to pay its portion of those catastrophes.
Thank you. And same question for Ms. LaRoche?
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify, the question was, would I support dedicated funding source, or was it specific to water?
Actually, it was specific to the water main. Such as.
Such
Do you support a dedicated funding source for emergency situations such as the water main break?
Sure. And I think I would support any tool in the toolbox, any funding source, if it's sustainable and it makes sense and responsible. As I understand it, with the water main break, the city of Robbinsdale had nothing. They were depleted. They needed help. I could be wrong on this, but we stepped in and helped. The funding that was there for the building would not have worked. You could not have used that fund, from what I understand, to do the water fix. So it was an emergency situation. In this case, the fees were an option. So I support whatever dedicated funding source makes sense to the people and makes sense to our budget that's sustainable and responsible. Thank you.
Okay. And here is the next question, and we'll begin with you, Ms. LaRoche. What are your plans for the betterment of our park system?
I am so excited to be serving on the Park and Rec Advisory Commission because so many really exciting things are happening. We've attended and we've held some community meetings, such as with Becker Park, and also the city has hired a consultant company to meet with stakeholders, such as residents, business owners, and city employees and advisory commission members. And so we've met a couple of times now, specifically for Becker Park, because that's one of the bigger projects, and I agree that it is underutilized. Some of the envisioned plans that we have or have been suggested by residents is making it an all-year-round park, making it family-friendly, having things such as a green space where we could have the food truck or farmers markets, any kind of festivals all throughout the year. We could skate, we could ski, we could walk. I'm just excited that to serve on this commission and hear input from residents as we've been going around the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Kaiser?
Can you repeat the question,
I
please?
sure will. What are your plans for the betterment of the park system?
I'm very excited about our park system here in Crystal. As I said earlier, I've lived in the city for decades and have been a big user of parks and green spaces. One thing that has been truly exciting for me is I've door-knocked. Even though I've lived here a long time, I'm seeing neighborhoods I've never known existed and little neighborhood parks that I think are just wonderful. We need to, as my opponent has said, we need to do something with Becker Park. I think that's number one on a lot of people's list. We have this great opportunity. It's underutilized, and I'm all for getting people outside 12 months out of the year. So another dog park would be great because that's a real community builder. Broomball is taking over Minneapolis. Why can't we bring Broomball to Crystal? Way to get people outside in the winter. I think only the best is yet to come. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And the next question, you will be the first one to answer. If elected, how would you represent the citizens as well as the city's interests?
Well, as I have said this evening, I've been meeting a lot of folks in the last couple months. I've knocked on a lot of doors. I've had a lot of conversations. And what struck me is people reaching out and in different ways to build their own sense of community. I had residents over by Younger Park talk about the new paved walkway that was, and a woman was pointing behind her house and said, now we can all walk to the park, even Lois, who needs a walker now, which I thought, great, seeing people use walkers on paved walkways to have an impromptu community meeting or meeting at Younger Park was just a great way to use city resources that are reaching a lot of people. There are other ways. It's a silly thing, but the free little libraries are popping up everywhere. Another great way, inexpensive, but it promotes lots of things. Reading, a sense of community, a sense of reuse and recycle. Instead of throwing away books or keeping them collecting dust, you can share them. Those are some simple things that can be done to build a sense of community and give everyone a stake, because people are happy when they're invested in their community. Thanks.
Thank you. And Ms. LaRoche?
Thank you. One of the things I've done the same, I've been outdoor knocking, meeting a lot of neighbors, and also in regards to the commissions that I'm serving on, we've done a lot of neighborhood meetings as well. And one of the big things that people like to hear is to know what's happening. And I can give a couple of examples. Most recently, I met a neighbor who has a dedicated rose garden over at Bassett Creek in memory of his wife. And when I door knocked, he said, I want to donate to the city of Crystal to make sure that that garden is cared for. And I understand that the city is tight on money, so this is something I'd like to do to give back. I came back to a meeting, spoke with our city manager, Ann Norris. The next day, she emailed me and said, Nancy, I just want you to know that I sent a letter to this particular resident, and we're going to get this set in motion. Two things. It carries on a wonderful memory, and it relieves the burden on the city of Crystal to maintain that. So I've met a lot of great neighbors. Overall, they are very, very happy with the services that they're being provided. They love how the city has been responsive, and that's something that I would love to continue as a council member. Thank you.
All right. And you will be the first one to answer the next question. Do you support finishing the work the Code Review Task Force started?
Absolutely. Having served on a couple commissions myself, this particular one I thought was a fantastic idea. For the city right now to go through over, 3,000 pages of code has been overwhelming, and I can see why some have just chosen not to deal with it, and that's created the mess that we're in now. So this very creative way of getting citizen volunteers from across the city, from across political spectrums, to volunteer their time to go through this code and get rid of and suggest improvements and modernizing it and making it plain language that's easy to understand. Absolutely, I support it, and I want to just give a shout out and thank those 14 people as well as the city and staff for completing or continuing this work. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Kaiser?
Yes, I support revising the code to make it simple for people to understand. 3,000 pages is more than anyone is going to sit down and read, or very few. So it makes sense to make government more transparent, to bring in input from citizens and have them participate and make it sounds like a cliche, but make it user-friendly. Good work has been started, and I'm all for it, and supporting it to a better end, maybe not an end, a better process to make it more understandable for everyone of Crystal.
Thank you very much. Here's the last question now, and it's a question that was asked of the mayors too, but I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, but maybe you'd like to say a little more about it. And here's the question, Ms. Kaiser, you'll be the first one to answer. How do you envision the development around the light rail station, and what do you see as the city's role in guiding that development?
That's a great question. Crystal is on the brink of all kinds of wonderful things that are going to happen. We've seen evidence of the development that other sections of the light rail has spurred. For example, if you look in Hopkins, where the southwest line will go through, there are 3 buildings, multifamily housing, going up right on the light rail. 2 blocks over, Main Street is going through a rejuvenation. There's 2 theaters there. There are 2 new restaurants that have opened up, all in anticipation of a pedestrian-friendly community. Why can't we do that in Crystal? We've got this great opportunity, as we've heard tonight. The light rail is coming, whether you're for it or against it, it's coming. Let's embrace it. And I see it as only good things happening for us here in Crystal.
Thank you very much. And Ms. LaRoche?
Development around the light rail, again, I've attended the Blue Line Corridor Committee's meetings, the community meetings, where we all sat around maps and looked at the bird's eye view. Saw a lot of tremendous opportunity, especially around Becker Park. There's I think a tired and worn business district right across the street, retail. That would be great to see that rehabbed and to make that more pedestrian-friendly as well. They've talked about making improvements to Becker Park, lowering that berm so that it's safer for people to walk along that way. I think the city's role in guiding is important. However, I also think that our citizens, those who use that park, those who walk, who may be using light rail, have an input and a say in this process, and that is priority if I'm elected as council member. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're reaching the final segment of this part of our tonight's forum in this Section 1 forum. Each candidate has up to 1 minute to deliver a closing statement, and we'll begin in reverse order from the opening statements, and that means we begin with Ms. Kaiser.
Hello again. I'm Therese Kaiser, and I want to start off by thanking you all for being here. You've really made this process interesting and special for me. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I know a lot of work goes in, and we appreciate this service that they're providing to our community. As I'm campaigning and talking to lots and lots of people and learning lots from the people that have been my neighbors for all these years, I have come away with, we have a great sense of community here in Crystal. People are happier when they connect with their with others and engage in their surroundings. I've met lots of folks. I've discovered a great many ways people connect with their neighbors. Small things make a big difference. As your council person, I plan on working with Crystal residents to build and help foster a sense of community through various activities. I think this is a great place to live. I am planning on living here for a very long time, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Ms. LaRoche.
Thank you. Again, my name's Nancy LaRoche. First of all, again, thank you again for hosting tonight's event to the League of Women Voters and all the hard work they've done. I've been an active and engaged volunteer in Crystal for many years. I've established working relationships with current council and city staff in the commissions that I've been serving on. Meeting neighbors like you in Section 1 has been a great learning experience, and so many have said that they've been happy with the state of the city and level of services. It is truly a great place to live, and my goal is to keep it that way and improve where we can and make sure that the citizens are involved and have a say. Neighbors encouraged me to run for this open seat. I'm proud to be endorsed by them and not any political party. This nonpartisan seat should be people-driven, not party-driven. And it would be an honor to represent you in Section 1. I'm asking for your vote. If you have any information or want to contact me, nancyforcrystal.com, or call me at 612-399-6791, and I'll be happy to answer any questions out in the lobby. Thank you.
And thank you very much to these two candidates. So give them a hand. From Ward 3 are here for you to question and listen to. The candidates are Casey Peak and John Budashevsky. Not to repeat too many times, but you do know where the timekeeper is. You're both have been candidates before, so you do know that the timekeeper will tell you how many seconds you have left, and then they'll have a big stop sign when to stop. And first of all, there will be opening statements of up to 2 minutes each. The first candidate to speak will be John Budashevsky.
Thank you. Hi, I'm John Budashevsky. I'm running for Crystal Ward 3. I have been a council member before, and I would like to thank everyone who has voted for me in the past and anybody I've had the opportunity to talk to while I've been out campaigning. I want you to know that I'm married. My wife and I have 2 children. We've lived in the city now for 19 years. I've been actively working on behalf of Crystal for many, many years. Matter of fact, early on in my political career, I was involved in a situation where I lived on a busy street. And that street was going to be reconstructed, and it looked like they were going to make it even busier than what it was at that time. I worked with my neighbors, and we put together a petition. We came to the city. We talked to both Robbinsdale and also to Crystal, and we were able to put our street construction on hold for a period of time until we found a better solution. I think it's one thing to show that I am a person who cares about the community. I'm someone who is willing to work with the people and be able to learn about a situation and be able to make the best decision based on the information in front of me. I can understand that there are situations that don't come at a good time. And when I was on the city council, we were going through a very difficult recession. At that time, we realized that people were under stress. We made sure that we lived within our means. We didn't use the tax levy as a means of trying to balance the city's budget. We always made prudent decisions based on those efforts. And I will, as a candidate, will do that for you on your behalf. I've always worked hard on your behalf. I'm asking you to vote for me, John Budashevsky. Thank you.
All right, and the second candidate to speak will be Casey Peak.
Thank you to the League of Women's Voters. I'd like to thank you for organizing this forum. It's really great that we have this all the time. I think it's really important that the citizens get a chance to actually listen to everybody who's involved in the city. My name is Casey Peak, and I'm your current sitting city council member for Ward 3. As my daytime job, I work as a network engineer, and I have a lot of hobbies. I tend to keep bees and all kinds of number of other things that I'm sure a lot of you have actually heard about myself. In my prior 4 years, I focused on reducing our overall debt, safeguarding our property rights and the rights of our citizens. I've worked on improving transparency in government, and one of the things that I worked on specifically was getting our work sessions recorded and put on our website. I think it's important that the citizens are able to hear all the discussions that are happening. They're able to make choices based on that information. I'm interested in simplifying our government. I want to make sure that our citizens are able to fully understand what's happening inside their city and what's expected of them as well. So one of the other things that I worked on was the citizen-driven City Code Review Task Force. And we don't just look at the City Code in order to reduce it. We want to simplify the language. We want that language to be easy to understand. Not only that, but reduce the volume, because nobody wants to read through a giant Bible of city code. Again, my name is Casey Peak, and you can reach me at caseypeak.com. It's got all my contact information there, and I'd like to thank you for having me here.
Okay, thank you both. One of the things I should have said was just to identify the location of Ward 3, because sometimes it can be confusing in Crystal. But it's north of 44th and 45th Avenue, northwest to east, up to about 54th or something like that. So that gives you a little idea of where these gentlemen are from. And now it's time for audience questions. And please continue to write. We have time for a lot of good questions, and there have been many good ones asked already. We may be repeating some because they do have a bearing in the whole of Crystal, and you want to hear from all these candidates about them. We will consolidate questions if there are some which are very similar. And so if you don't hear your exact wording, you'll know that perhaps it has been consolidated with another question. Questions will be answered in rotating order, and the first one to answer will be Mr. Budashevsky. And we'll start with the most popular question of the evening. Do you support the Bottineau light rail line?
Yes, I do. And if elected, I will call for a vote in support of light rail transportation here in Crystal. I think it's very important that we as a council back this project. This is something that we've needed for a long time. I have said when I was on the Crystal City Council that we've been underserved by public transportation. When I first moved here, the only bus transportation that was in my neighborhood was a bus that went up and down 81 from 47th to Corvallis and back 3 times a day. That was it. Otherwise, you had to walk to the Hubbard station in Robbinsdale. This is a necessary improvement to our community. This is something that's going to drive development within our city itself. And also the real benefit that we're going to see is that people are going to want to live here because of the connectivity that the light rail brings, not only to Crystal, but also to other parts of the metro area. It's fantastic that you can go downtown and you can get on a light rail train and take it all the way out to the airport. Not only will that happen, but you'll be able to take it all the way to St. Paul. You'll be able to see a baseball game in St. Paul or go visit the Twins at Target Field or even the Vikings itself. And basically, you won't have to worry about where you're going to park and the congestion that's going to be on the roads at those times. I think that this is something that's going to enhance and drive development within our city, and also in terms of, beautification, in terms of Becker Park. I think it's going to be connected to the light rail station itself, and it's going to be a great improvement. Thank you.
All right, and same question for Mr. Peak.
I don't think it's any surprise that I don't actually support the light rail. However, with that being said, we don't get to vote on that at this point. We have to deal with what's in front of us. And do I deny that there's any type of opportunity with this? Absolutely not. We actually have some tremendous opportunity going forward. With the light rail coming in, we can actually look at beautification of Becker Park, as has been said many times. But we can also look at revamping our kind of downtown area. It's really nice that we have a lot of the businesses along that area that we do now, but some of it could use a facelift. I know that's been discussed a lot. So that's one of the things that we're actually looking at doing is beautifying the entire area, not just the park itself, but around there, because we want to increase the amount of people that are walking through there and stop to shop. There are a lot of other benefits of light rail. There's also some drawbacks. One of those drawbacks is a lot of us are concerned that our small town feel will kind of go away. So I want to make sure I protect that. You know, the small town feel is the thing I actually hear the most about what people love about the city of Crystal. We love the fact that we're so close to downtown, and yet, at the same time, we all know our neighbors. We walk down the street, we feel safe. We greet one another. When there's a storm, we walk outside. We see a downed tree. We go and we make sure everybody's okay. We offer our support and our help. This is what a small town is really like. Thank you.
All right, the next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Peak. Why is the price tag so high, reportedly $90,000 so far, for the all-volunteer city code task force?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't seen anything near that high. That's a really difficult question to answer because I haven't seen anything that even looks that high. Really, this is citizen-driven. The majority of it is actually volunteers. We do have to have our lawyer involved, so there is certain legal fees that are involved in that because we want to make sure that none of the codes that are necessary get stripped. One of the discussions that we actually had the other night happened to be around graffiti. So we wanted to make sure that the code was placed in the right section, easy to understand. We wanted to make sure that certain wording that was in there was removed. There was some wording that was in there that kind of changed the way that due process of law would be handled for any youth. I didn't really think that that was necessarily the intent of it. So we wanted to get that changed around. And as the people were looking at it, you know, it was really necessary in a lot of these laws for us to make sure that the lawyer ended up having certain items that were updated. So it was important to be able to have a lot of that involved. But it didn't come to near as high of a price tag as what I'm hearing tonight.
Well, that is the question, so that is what I read to you. And Mr. Buduszewski. You want me to repeat it?
Sure.
Why is the price tag so high, reportedly $90,000 so far, for the all-volunteer city code task force?
Anytime you have any change to public policy, it involves not only legal representation, but also city staff. And as we can see, we are faced with an 8% tax levy, and $90,000 represents a good portion of that, a 1/5 of that tax levy. And they're just started. So that tells me that this 8% tax levy is not a one-time deal. So it's unfortunate. I think that code enforcement is important within Crystal. I think it's something that council has been working on since Crystal became a charter city. I think it shows some of the history and connectivity between us and the past. And I think it's unfortunate that in a time when you're having trouble obviously balancing your budget for 2017, that you would find that this is an opportunity to laugh about. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Buduszewski, you will be the first person to answer this next question. Both of you have served on the Crystal City Council. Can you tell us how you would differ on your approach to some of the city issues?
Casey and I have served together 2 years. On the time that we were together on the city council, we spoke primarily about the Public Works building. The Public Works building, we had $10 million in the building replacement fund on a project that cost $12.5 million. Historically, bond rates were at an all-time low, 1%, even less. And we had forged a compromise of a 60-40 split, paying 60% cash, 40% in a bond. And I realized that Mayor Adams spoke earlier about a $6 million interest savings. $6 million interest on a 1% bond of $5 million, that math does not make sense. That was the largest hangup in the 2 years that I worked with Casey Peak on this council. We went back and forth over financing of this building, and finally, with the election, I was voted out of office, and unfortunately, we now have a situation where we have used money from other funds to pay for the building. And now we are faced with a situation where not only do we have to increase the tax levy to be able to keep existing services, but we've also raided other funds that were necessary to be able to help prevent issues within the city. The biggest issue we're looking at in front of us is we're probably a leadership city in terms of street reconstruction. I'll talk more about this in a little bit. Thank you.
All right. It's always terrible to have to stop someone.
Yeah.
Mr. Peak, your answer to that question.
Well, John and I differ quite a bit. However, we agreed on some things too. It's not like we're coming at this as an adversarial type of thing. It's really just a matter of the way that we look at things. I pretty much take an a priori of citizen rights first. That's my first thing that I look at. Going to talking about the building and how we handled that, I really wanted to pay cash. We had $10 million for it. We had a very small amount that was actually outside of that. It made sense for us to do it. It saved us on that interest rate. It doesn't matter how low it is, you're still talking about an interest rate. That's going to increase the overall cost of it. If we have the cash, why not pay cash for it? It makes sense. We haven't hurt for it. There's been no problem with it. And, just to quash some of this myth that's been going around about this 8% increase right now, yeah, we do have a large increase, but if you look at our neighbors are looking at double digits in their increases. We've actually managed to keep it rather low. I had voted no, so it's not that I was happy with the 8% increase. I would have rather have tried to go a little bit lower. But, if you look at the way our neighbors have done and you listen to the reasons why, you understand very rapidly that the increase comes primarily from personnel cost increases. Thank you.
All right. Maybe this will give us an opportunity to go a little further into that if you want. And the first one to answer will be Mr. Peak. Do you feel that bonding for infrastructure projects is a prudent, fiscally responsible way for Crystal to finance and fund projects?
I thought it was a really good question. And it's got two answers. If I can pay cash for it, it makes sense to pay cash because it saves us that interest rate. However, there are circumstances where it doesn't make sense. It makes sense to go with the bonding. If you take a look at the way that bonds work, there's always a cost factor to it. So you've got to weigh the differences. I think the majority of the time with cash on hand, cash is king, as the saying goes. But as of late, we've noticed that, yes, our funds have reached the point where there's a little bit of a balance that needs to be in play, mainly because of our cost increase that have happened recently due to personnel and other things. So if something were to happen like that right now, bonding might be the way to go. But this is a discussion that we'd have to have, the specifics of the situation, and other items that may be involved. Thank you.
And Mr. Budashevsky.
The Public Works Building project started under Mayor Bowman's regime. That's when we started the process. That's when we started the land acquisition. At that time, the Kavanaugh School was up for sale by the District 281. They approached Crystal about buying the Kavanaugh School, and we bought that land, and we were able to save that park. Now, the company Dominion that bought the land from us, the portion that had been appropriated for the new Kavanaugh Senior Living Facility, they used Crystal's tax exempt status to bond for that building. That's one method of how Crystal uses bonding to be able to attract not only development within the city itself, but also promote growth and also grow tax revenue. Now, as with the municipal buildings, such as the Public Works Building, we only had $10 million. The building itself was $12.5 million. We were short money. We spent 2 years discussing how to pay for it. We didn't have an issue with building the building. We had a problem with paying for it. And we had a staunch contingent who steadfastly said they wanted to pay cash. They could not explain how to pay cash for the building. And the way they paid for it was that they took money from other funds, such as the street reconstruction fund, and also for street maintenance. So now, Crystal, which is on the forefront in terms of our infrastructure. Thank you.
Sorry to have to cut you off there. These finance questions always need a longer time.
There
don't
is a
they?
lot to them.
There is a lot to them. And I would suggest that any member of the audience who's asked questions like these, who wants to go into it more fully with either of these candidates, you can talk with them afterward, and I've noticed that they're all giving you a way to communicate with them, so please do that to satisfy yourself. Here's a question that's been asked before, but again, it involves some of the things you're already talking about. And the first person to answer this will be Mr. Budashevsky. If the city faces an emergency such as the 42nd Avenue water main breakage, could the city handle the expense, and where would the money come from?
Well, now I'm not so sure because we spent all the cash. But in the past, the city ran rather well in terms of financing, in terms of emergency issues. The first time the water main broke, we were 6 days away from running out of water. We were 6 days away from becoming like another Katrina or possibly even a Hurricane Matthew, where we would have had semi-trucks full of water come into the city and we would have been offloading water to the people of the city. Fortunately, our engineering staff called in a lot of favors. We had help from the county. We were able to repair that main line, and we were able to get water flowing back into the city of Crystal. It was a fantastic job. Throughout that period and into the period currently, the current mayor and council have been told repeatedly that there was problems with the water main. It is fortunate that we had finished our emergency water supply system and that we were able to receive water from Minneapolis in a different direction. So when that water main broke in Robbinsdale again, the city was able to shut down that water main and be able to repair it. Now, unfortunately, that water main has been financed through your water bill. You're seeing a per unit cost that's been attached to your unit bill. So, besides the current tax levy that's been proposed, the current city council has, thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Peak, please.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. If the city faces an emergency such as the 42nd Avenue water main breakage, could the city handle the expense? Where would the money come from?
It's a very good question. Short answer, yes, absolutely we would be able to handle it right now. You know, there's this myth going around that we've spent all the money. There's plenty of money that we still have. I mean, if you think about it like bank account, you might have different types of funds and you might budget items differently in different areas, but really it's all still your money. So if you have the money there, you can pay for it. There's plenty of money that's still around. Would we spend cash for it at this point? Probably not. That might be one of those instances where we would bond. So could we pay for it? Absolutely. Where would the money come from? We'd have to take a look at things in order to see where that would come from. Right this minute, I'm guessing it'd probably be bonding. You know, as far as knowing about the water main and the potential for the break, that's not exactly accurate. We did know that there was a pipe. Our pipe system is starting to age, and we were told that we were going to have to begin work on renovating those pipes. We took action pretty rapidly, and we're starting to renovate a lot of those pipes. It's happening simultaneously along with the street reconstruction, as well as several different other items that we've done in order to be able to renovate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question, Mr. Peak, you will be the first one to answer this one. What are your plans for the betterment of the park system?
I love our park system. I think our park system is wonderful. I really like our recreations department too. Recreations department and the parks, they both go hand in hand. And I would really like to see some more of our money go into that. That was actually one of the things I argued about during this last budget cycle. You know, what happened in the previous regime before I got in there was repeatedly the Parks and Recreations Department was cut several times, year after year. And right now, there's a joke that goes around the Parks and Recs Department about who gets to use the calendar. And it's really a joke. It's not real, but at the same token, it just shows how low their resources are. I would really like to see us be able to give them more resources so that way they can enjoy, our citizens can enjoy more recreation activities. I think that if we increased our recreation activities and we increased the beauty in our parks and had more ability to be able to use it, I think that it would go a long way to helping the health of the community. Excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Budashevsky.
If you wouldn't mind repeating the question, please.
Sure. What are your plans for the betterment of the park system?
If elected, I will complete the street reconstruction program. That has been the one thing that's benefited our parks so far throughout the city of Crystal. And the reason why is if you can imagine, before this land was developed, it was all farmland. And the parks themselves were like the low spots or the groves in which were untillable by the farmers. So once the land was developed, those areas that were basically couldn't be developed became our parks. When I first moved here to the city, we had a big rainfall like we did this year. Our parks would just fill up full of water. So all that debris that was in the street itself, the oil, the antifreeze, we're talking about any pollutants that were on the street itself would all end up in our parks. Our parks were becoming horrible wastelands. 47th Avenue, the water would run all the way down 47th and right into Twin Lake. Twin Lake was a cesspool. Now with the street reconstruction plans, with the ability to be able to retain that water into holding ponds, into rain gardens, we were able to improve our park systems. The one thing that's unfortunate about our parks right now is that we start seeing more and more removal of things being removed from the park. And the example I have to give to you is I live by Welcome Park. My daughter and I play tennis. We used to have a tennis court there. One day we went to play tennis and the tennis court was gone. Now, it wasn't the greatest tennis court in the world. It wasn't beautiful, but it was some place where we could play. We have to go. Thank you.
All right. It's another question you're going to have to talk about afterwards. But now we've reached the final segment of this part of our forum. Each candidate has up to 1 minute to give a closing statement, and we'll begin in reverse order from the opening statements, and that means we begin with Mr. Peak.
Hi, again, my name is Casey Peak, and I'm your current sitting city council representative. I would like to ask for your support and your vote come this election cycle. If you would like any signs or anything else, you can visit my website at caseypeak.com. I'd like to continue my efforts in reducing our debt. I would like to continue to improve our recreation offerings. You know, since we're talking a lot about parks, one of the things I've really been thinking about a lot is, why do we always gear the parks towards kids? It'd be really nice to see like an obstacle course or something we can all play on. It'd be kind of fun. I'd enjoy it. I'd like to focus a lot of my efforts on enhancing our small town feel through the efforts of our community outreach task force. This task force is something I actually I thought of and I really wanted because the Human Rights Commission wasn't really working very much anymore, and we did hear about that tonight. I wanted this community outreach task force. Thank you.
A minute goes fast, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, 1 minute goes really fast.
Mr. Budashevsky.
Thank you. I am John Budashevsky, and if elected, I will promote more senior living projects like the Kavanaugh Senior Living Center. As a former council member, I worked on this project that not only brought residents to our community, but also saved Kavanaugh Park. The current mayor and members of the council tried to undermine that project, and claiming costs, parking complaints, land use, and now they want to take credit for it. With the coming of the Blue Line light rail, we'll see greater connectivity so that more people will want to live in our beautiful city. I will also propose a long-term solution for the railroad crossings at Douglas Drive and West Broadway. Not only will I quiet the train whistles, but I'll also make the intersection safe, less inconvenient to residents and the surrounding businesses. I am opposed to the current proposed tax levy of 8%. My promise to you is to live within our means. We as a council should support Black History and Genocide Awareness Months, especially given the current and historical events that we are faced with. This opportunity has been ignored by the current mayor and city council. It's inconceivable. I also propose, thank you.
Thank you very much to both candidates for Crystal City Council from Ward 3. Thank you very much. Formed this evening, the candidates from Ward 4 are Julie Deschler and Jeff Munson. According to my handy-dandy map of Crystal, Ward 4 is an area north of 54th Avenue North from east to west to the northern border of Crystal. And so that's who they will be representing. So just to run over very quickly, there's a timekeeper right out here in the front who will indicate how many seconds are left and when to stop. You certainly may finish your sentence if the stop sign is up, but please don't go any further than that. So we'll begin with our opening statement of up to 2 minutes, and the first candidate to speak will be Jeff Munson.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this forum on. I got to attend the last one as an audience member, and I think it's a fantastic idea. I have been a resident of Crystal for about 16 years, along with my wife. Longer than some, not as long as many. The thing that really got to me and the reason that I'm running is the whole Public Works building, and I'm sure we'll have several questions in regards to that. I run my own business. I'm a realtor. So I understand the concept of cash is king. I understand the concept of planning for budgeting because, you know, the pockets only run so deep. And I think that's something that we need to look at in this election. I'm a big fan of the Blue Line. I'm very excited for it. I think it offers a wealth of opportunity. And I also believe that we do have some say in how that project moves forward. Sure, we could just not have any say and just let the county do whatever it wants. But I think if we work with them, we'll have a better product at the end. The other thing is the Becker Park situation. I think those are the three biggest, the taxes, the budgeting, the Becker Park, and the Blue Line. I think those three things are some of the bigger items on Crystal's sheets that are coming up. So again, I'm looking forward to your vote on November 8th. My name is Jeff Munson, City Council member, running for City Council, Ward 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Julie Deschler.
Well, good evening. I wanted to also thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight, and I wanted to welcome the guests. I have been on the city council for about 6 years. My first time I ran was 2010, and I was finishing a 2-year term for a council member that had got ill. I ran again in 2012 and won, although it was an easy win because nobody ran against me. And I'm going to throw my hat again in for the 2016 race. The priorities that I had in 2010 for running are really what I'm still committed to today. My biggest priority, I guess, is to be a good advocate for our residents, to listen to their concerns, and take their voices to City Hall. I feel like I've done a marvelous job. I mean, I hate to brag, but I have done a really good job answering emails, letters, concerns, and always following through with all the residents for any concern they have. They might not always like the answer they get, but they will get an answer from me. The other priorities that I continue to work on in collaboration with the other council members are code enforcement for blighted properties, keeping our parks up to date and functional, working towards a fresh, more updated look for some of the business areas, making sure our infrastructure is in good working order so we can continue to have clean drinking water, good roads to drive on, and know that we can flush our toilets and not have to worry about it. I'm committed to making sure we have enough police coverage patrolling our neighborhoods so that we have our families feel safe, and a fire department that is close enough in proximity to respond should you need them. I'm hopeful through this candidate forum you'll find that I have the very best interests at heart for our residents, and I hope that you will think about voting for me again on November 8th.
Thank you very much. And now we begin the questioning part of our forum. You can continue to write your questions. Again, if it's directed to one candidate, both candidates will be able to answer the question. Sometimes questions that are asked have to be consolidated because there's more than one or two, and so if you don't see your exact wording, it's because it's been consolidated with another question. Questions will be answered in rotating order, and we'll begin with Ms. Deschler. How do you envision the development around the light rail station, and what do you see as the city's role in guiding that development?
Well, I would like to see the Becker Park area updated. My primary focus is, giving an updated look to the businesses along Bass Lake Road. We are in the midst of working with Hennepin County right now to make Bass Lake Road have some off-street type parking spots right in front of those businesses, updating the facades on them, putting new lighting and new signage in. I'm not unopposed to, maybe a smaller apartment complex or something like that. I guess we'll have to see how it plays out in time. I don't want to go crazy all at once, but I want to have a well thought out plan for making the area look nice and so that everybody is comfortable in the area.
And the same question to Mr. Munson.
I think the light rail development is going to be very important to the citizens of Crystal on a couple of different fronts. We have to make sure that our citizens are not negatively impacted by the light rail. Perhaps noise screens, perhaps, the stations. I think that in conjunction with that light rail station, wouldn't it be neat if Becker Park, since it's considered being revamped as well, almost became a destination park? Maybe people actually come on the light rail to be at Becker Park for concerts, for those green spaces, for maybe, disc golf or whatever some of those other plans are for Becker Park. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. And of course, as that development occurs, it's going to be better for our city because it's going to draw more people into the city, and that in itself will then allow businesses along Bass Lake to upgrade their storefronts, because as the money comes in for them, they're going to reinvest it into their business, hopefully, and that way it just becomes, I think, a win-win situation as we develop that blue line extension to make things just better for Crystal.
All right, thank you very much. And the next question, And when we get into these financing questions, people tend to take a long time to answer, so this one has to do with the financing of the Public Works building, and asking why the decision was made to deplete cash reserves earning 2% annual interest and rejecting bonding for the same amount of money costing 1% in annual interest. So I think the first one to answer that question is Mr. Munson.
So this Public Works building, for me, was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was the thing that really incited me to run for this position. I felt that the council should have bonded, not all of it, but perhaps a portion, especially when interest rates were as low as they were. The entire world was using bank money. And yes, it does cost money when you borrow money. But here's the thing. Think of it this way. When I bought my house in Crystal, I didn't pay all cash for it. I couldn't. But what I did make sure of is that the payment I had to make, my mortgage payment, fit within my budget. I kind of see the same thing with the Public Works building. If you can afford that payment and keep your cash for other situations, Mr. Peak himself said, cash is king, and I agree. Cash is king. It's always nice to have cash on hand when you have shortages, instead of, taking $650,000 from the EDA fund, taking $1 million from the 3 utility funds. That money just doesn't get replaced automatically. It has to find a different way to get there. So to me, those were the big issues in regards to the bonding of the Public Works building.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Deschler.
Well, my analogy is pretty simple on this, but I go back to a time when I was growing up, and my parents had us put $5 a month into a Christmas savings account. That money was for Christmas presents at the end of the year. It wasn't a reserve to pay other things. If my chain broke on my bike, I didn't get a new chain out of my Christmas money. So at the end of the year, I had money in that bank account to take out, and I bought my grandparents and my sister and my parents presents. I used it for what it was designed for, presents. So while maybe I would have agreed to bond part of it, I didn't feel in any way that I was spending down anybody's reserve and putting any of our residents in jeopardy. We spent the money. We spent money out of the building major replacement fund for a building. We saved taxpayer money. We told them we're going to save this money for a major building. So it was used for exactly what it was designed for.
Thank you very much. So let's continue on with this whole fiscal line of questions from the audience. And the first one to answer this will be Ms. Deschler. How would you describe your fiscal policies? Do they differ from your opponents?
Well, many people know that, I don't sit and read the budget book every night. It just drives me crazy. I guess I feel like I'm fiscally responsible. I try to be sensible as I can. I watch the bottom line, and I just, kind of keep an eye on unnecessary spending. But there are certain expenses that are just fixed expenses that we have to come up with every month just to keep the business going at the city. Would I allow them to put a $1 million fountain in the middle of Becker Park? Probably not. If they needed a police car because, one was just crapping out all the time, absolutely, get it. And so there are some things I'm okay with. There are other things I'd have to take a closer look at before I would agree. So I feel like I'm fairly fiscally conservative.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Munson.
I think this is probably where Julie and I differ the most. And this is where the citizens of Crystal will have an opportunity to make a choice. Much like Julie mentioned with her Christmas fund, the city of Crystal has different funds. It has a utility fund. It has an economic development authority fund. It has a general fund for various things. It has, the PIR funds for purchases of equipment. And those funds should be used for what their intent is, to buy vehicles. There's a major building reconstruction fund. That is a fabulous thing for public works buildings. But when you don't have all of the money in that fund, you shouldn't be taking from your Christmas fund. You shouldn't be taking from your emergency fund. You shouldn't be taking from your water fund, your electric fund, those utility funds. You should then use a bond. Like I said, it's not about using a bond for the entire purchase of the building. But when you start pulling money out of your funds that you're supposed to be setting aside for other things, to me, that raises a red flag. And I'm hoping that they've, maybe learned their lesson. My other concern is with the paying off early of bonds. I've got some information. Investors don't like their bonds being paid off early. It makes the next bond more expensive. Or sometimes you can't even get a bond because you've been paying them off early and the investor's not getting all of their money that they were planning on. It does not make investors happy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Munson, you'll be the first one to answer this question, and actually it's directed to you, but of course, Ms. Deschler, you can answer it as well. Mr. Munson, as a realtor, how will light rail affect property values for homes in that area?
Light rail, and by the way, much like the street reconstruction projects, tend to increase the value of a property. Crystal is, well, all cities are aging demographics, but as people need to leave their homes for whatever purpose, you want to be able to attract new life into your city. Crystal pretty much is very much a first-time home buyer type city. Average sales price in Ward 4 is about $167,000. Most of the homes in Ward 4 are 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. And sometimes that 3rd bedroom is made into a dining room. Some of them are slab on grade. So when you put in a light rail, that brings the attractiveness of that city to people who are looking to buy. And that will increase the average sales price or the sales prices in general of a lot of the homes, especially in Ward 4, because that's where the light rail is, and that's going to help increase the values as well as the streets, because I know my street now looks awesome. We just went through this process this summer. It was a little painful, but we survived, and I love the curbs. I just love the curbs. Thank you.
And Ms. Deschler.
I'm not in real estate. I don't know about increase in value. I have talked to a few realtors, particularly a couple of realtors that have sold properties along the Green Line. And they said at first the values decreased quite significantly the first year. But now they're seeing quite a surge. And I don't know if that's just because the homeowner market is surging a little bit. I can't help believe that a lot of younger people would be willing to come to the area and look at homes just because of the convenience for transportation. So I'm hopeful that we'll increase the values down the line for sure.
All right. Thank you very much. Next question, and we'll begin with you, Ms. Deschler. In the past, have you served on any Crystal commissions or any organizations serving the citizens of Crystal?
Well, I started the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon program for our community in conjunction with New Hope, Robbinsdale, and Golden Valley. And we are here primarily to help any member of the military or their family, whether they're just recently returning home or they're 80 years old. So I've done that. I'm on the Crystal VFW Women's Auxiliary. I'm in the Rotary Club. I'm in the Crystal Lions Club. I resurrected the Crystal Airport Open House. Got that going again. So I feel like I'm pretty entrenched into the community and the residents.
Thank you very much. And same question to Mr. Munson.
This is one place, Julie, where I will tip my hat to you, because you do a lot for the community. I myself am a member of the Charter Commission. Most of my charitable work is not necessarily directly impact Crystal. For the last 6 years, I've been doing the polar plunge over in Maple Grove for the Special Olympics. And by the way, any Crystal council members who want to join me, that'll be February of next year. So, you know, we can get you signed up. But my own office, we do various charitable fundraising things for other events like Can Do Canines, and there's another program with children involved. We do lunches there and things of that nature. So while I'm not, I'm vested in the community. For the last 8 years, off and on, and by the way, this is a weird experience for me, because I would sit out in the audience during the council meetings, and I watched the council meetings. That's why I feel fairly knowledgeable in what's currently going on with the council. So I'm vested in the community, just perhaps not in the same ways that Julie is.
Thank you very much. Sounds like you're both pretty busy. This next question is for you, Mr. Munson. How would you encourage citizen involvement in the city of Crystal?
Well, I think it's a difficult thing to do because the citizens have to want to do that. As I mentioned, I've been living here for 16 years. I really didn't start getting to the Crystal Council meetings until after about 8 years. And that was because I wanted to get involved. I got involved with the Charter Commission because I wanted to get involved a little bit more. But I also had to be mindful of my time commitments. I think that the Code Commission is a great way to get people involved in the city, because if they have a positive experience with that, when they're done with the revisions of the codes, they might go on to other commissions. And I haven't looked at all the commission openings recently, but again, check the website. In the city of Crystal, there's openings almost all the time. So, you know, I encourage people to get involved because you'll learn more about your city. You get to meet people that you would not normally meet. I've met a bunch of people on the Charter Commission that I probably would have never met because they don't live nearby me.
Thank you very much. Ms. Dessler.
Well, we have, in the city of Crystal, we have a quarterly newsletter that talks about, you know, different volunteer opportunities. We have a gentleman in town who started the Light of Crystal Facebook page that more and more Crystal residents are joining in on and learning about opportunities and events around Crystal. We also have Next Door, which is a dedicated page to neighborhoods to give them notices about maybe a garage sale in the neighborhood, a function going on at the city, maybe break-ins in a neighborhood. It's just a good way to reach a lot of people fast. So I think the city, the city has a police Facebook page, a recreation Facebook page, and then just a city Facebook page. So we have made great strides in trying to think of all creative ways to reach out to the community. I know, just for instance, this Light of Crystal Facebook page, recently there was a very disabled female veteran and lives in Ward 4, and she just didn't have any help mowing her lawn. So I put a little post on the Light of Crystal. I'm telling you, within 5 minutes, that lawn, I had a gentleman in Ward 3 actually, who volunteered, said, I'll meet you there Sunday morning at 10 o'clock and we'll get it done. I mean, so it's a good way to be able to reach out and join forces with the residents.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for answering these questions. Right now, we're going to move along to the closing part of this segment of the forum. Each of you has up to 1 minute for a closing statement, and we'll begin in reverse order from the opening statements. So, Ms. Dessler, you will have first go at this.
Well, again, thank you for this opportunity tonight. Just in closing, you know, I'll just reiterate that as your council representative in Ward 4, I've tried to be as committed as I can to being responsive to your concerns, tried to be a good listener and a very positive advocate for our community. As a taxpayer myself, I try and bring common sense to the table in terms of making policy. And I try to understand that we don't always need we don't always need to reinvent the wheel. We don't always need to buy a new wheel. Sometimes we just have to add air to our wheel we already have and we'll find out it works just fine. But again, you know, I've been committed to being out and about in the community. I volunteer at the pork chop dinners monthly at the VFW. I volunteer at the steak fries. Again, plan the airport open house, planned a bowling event fundraiser for our dog Rocco. So, I mean, if you can't find me out in the community, you're not coming out of your house. So, I invested in the continued success of our community, and I would please ask for your vote on November 8th.
And Jeff Munson.
Well, again, I want to, first of all, thank everyone who stuck around all this time. And thanks to our moderator, she's probably done more speaking than all of us put together. But I hope tonight that what the citizens of Crystal have gathered or gleaned is that you do have a choice. Myself or Julie, I'm a firm believer of, you know, getting the budget in line, trying to deplete these tax raises, you know, using bonding when necessary, when it makes sense, using it now when the interest rates are low instead of, who knows, 4 or 5 years from now when they might be much higher. And I have no inside information. But, so that's my hope. My hope, the biggest reason I'm running is because of that, but also I just want to give the citizens of Crystal a choice, because you do have one. So you need to vote on November 8th. You need to remember to flip the ballot over to the other side. I worked as an election judge. You wouldn't believe how many people would forget that. Yeah, exactly. So if you just got to get out there and vote November 8th.
Well, we want to thank all the candidates and the audience members for their part in the forum tonight. You certainly had 8 enthusiastic candidates up here, and I don't know how you're going to choose, but you have to do that. So let's have a big hand for all the candidates.
We'd like to thank Joanne Brown, our moderator, and also thank you to the candidates for their very thoughtful answers to your questions. Thank you to Channel 12 Cable TV. This event will be rebroadcast. And there was a yellow sheet of paper that you could pick up, but it's Sunday, October 9th at 7 o'clock a.m., Thursday, October 13th at 10 o'clock a.m., and Sunday, October 16th at 10 o'clock p.m. So those are the times that it will be rebroadcast. And also especially thank you all for attending and learning about the candidates.
Yeah, campaign show.